Hi guys, there's this idea that as people get older, they become more conservative. The argument behind this is that as an individual becomes a homeowner or sees their salary increase over time, they become more inclined to want to see their house go up in price because they see it as an asset that they can pass on to their children. But as they get richer, they are less inclined to support increases in taxes on income. This is not the case for everyone, but it's a general belief. However, this generalization, it seems, is completely off when we're talking about Generation Z and Millennials, which are not seeing their income rise and are struggling to pay rent, never mind have any plan to buy a house. This, of course, means the whole concept of a young conservative is becoming more and more rare. Here, Adam Hawksbee of the conservative organisation Onward explains how the Tory party is struggling to reach out to younger voters.
So I guess the bad news first, which you previewed there for the government at least, which is that the millennial generation, people aged 25 to 40, are extraordinarily frustrated with the government. So some of the headlines you gave there, they think they're incompetent, out of touch. 2/3 of them, 62%, think they deserve to lose the next election. So those headline figures are really worrying. And what our report tries to do is get underneath them and understand why. One of the big drivers, might not be hugely surprising, is housing. So among the general population, about 21% of people put housing as a top 3 issue. For millennials, that's 29%. And they also care about taxation more than the general population. They feel they're overtaxed, particularly in relation to the services that they get. So the headline figures really bad. The 2 quick positives for the government maybe are, one, there's a Sunak effect. So people in their 30s have a 25-point boost. They prefer Rishi Sunak 25 percentage points more than the Conservative Party. And the second is that these millennials don't seem to be extraordinarily left-wing. They're what we are calling shy capitalists. They might have left-wing values when you ask them. They might prefer a more equal economy, but their policy preferences are more centre-right. They want to keep more of their money as opposed to redistribute it. And we see that on a range of different questions as well.
I think this is interesting because what he's talking about here is young conservatives who are probably protected, isolated from the cost of living crisis. So they're not experiencing it like everyone else. And they are, in a sense, free to be more socially liberal. But when it comes to economics, they're they're economically conservative. So they believe in low taxes because maybe they work in the city or they have high-paying jobs. But when it comes to issues like the environment, equality, trans rights, gay rights, whatever, they're socially liberal. But when it comes to money in the bank, they prefer the Conservatives, and they under the belief that the Conservatives are a low tax party. Which isn't really the case. But he's right here about when it comes to housing. You know, even if these people are earning massive amounts of money, they're still struggling to get on the housing ladder, and they want some sort of support.
It is nonetheless a big problem for the Conservatives. We've always had this picture of the average Tory voter as somebody perhaps not in their first flush of youth. But if they're not even getting those up to the age of 40 and those people are not beginning to turn more to Conservative, I mean, presumably part of the reason for that is because they don't feel that they're getting what they want from this government, which is, as you say, primarily housing, but also things like transport.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that I think people move towards the centre-right or become more open to voting Conservative as they age is they start laying down roots. They get a more regular job, they buy a house, they start a family. And a lot of those things have become more challenging in the past 10, 20 years, not entirely because of government policy, but the rising costs of childcare. Onward have written a range of reports on that, have become a real problem. So that material offer isn't there for millennials to lend their vote for the Conservatives, and there needs to be more action on that. And the other thing is on the kind of social side. So we looked at some of these culture war issues to understand to what degree that was driving attitudes among young people. And actually, we found that they weren't particularly fussed either way, that they don't have very strong views on culture. They're kind of soft left as opposed to hard left. But every time you ask them whether they prioritize an economic issue or a social one, a cultural one, they always want an offer on the economy. So that material offer, childcare, transport, jobs, housing, that's where the Tories need to focus if they want to win this cohort back.
win it back. I don't know if they can win it back, because the Tories are not concerned about the younger generation. They're not really concerned about the public in general, but when it comes to the younger generation who are crying out for support when it comes to housing, improvements in transportation, the Tories are just not listening, because they believe that they can't win over this generation, so they've abandoned it. And when he says about the culture issues, yes, this is not cutting through. It's cutting through with the older generation, the people who are perhaps retired or people who are in a very comfortable position, who are not starting out in life. The culture war seemed to work on those people, but for the younger generation, their primary concern is, can I buy a house? Even if I'm earning a lot of money, can I buy a house? Can I pay the rent? And am I going to be stuck in this situation for the rest of my life? And if the Conservatives don't throw them a bone, if they don't give them something, of course they're going to vote for someone else, be it the Liberal Democrats, the Greens, or even the Labour Party. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.